Welcome back to another episode of Finding Freedom. In this episode, I want to talk about, well, who works for who? Does God work for the government, or does the government work for God? And who's who? I mean, well, the World Health Organization. And if that's the case, why doesn't their logo transition over to the United States? Let's think about it. Now let's get into it. Now, the government and God and all that could be nicknamed Gigi for all I care. I don't know. Ask Andrew Bustamante. He used to work for the CIA and everything like that. I guess that's why he's able to express his freedom of speech. But if we're not able to actually express our freedom of speech, and they're always talking about China and communism and all that, well, we might as well call the United States China. I mean, think about it. You have Cantonese, Latinese, Blackanese, Frickanese, and everything else like a Pekingese. So, I mean, think about it. Now, let's talk about the World Health Organization and Pfizer. Why is their CEO a veterinarian and they always call us sheep or dogs or this or that? Now, if you put two and two together, maybe, just maybe, you could put the puzzle pieces together for the pushback, right? Because there's the freedom of speech aspect, right? But then there's also the right to bear arms. Now, all this crazy making is probably going to end up in a civil war along with World War III. I mean, think about it. Look at what they're doing overseas with different technology, right? You remember Iron Man, right? Where they use a futuristic technology to render him useless so they could take out his chest piece, remember? It was like a supersonic sound, so on and so forth. Didn't they do that in Serbia? Check the news. It's all over, right? So, I mean, think about it. If you're trying to find freedom, you have to start with your speech. And if you can't be free with your speech, then why even try to teach or preach, right? So what's the purpose of the church then, right? Besides lining their pockets with boatloads of cash and then preaching goodness and saying this, that, and the third. I mean, we created the Impossible Burger with Bill Gates, and we have cloning and everything else like that. Why can't they go ahead and make, well, I don't know, perfect matches for people who need heart transplants or lung transplants or, I don't know, livers or whatever the case may be, a kidney so you could come off dialysis? Oh, because the drug market and the United States is an experimental lab. Now, in the Air Force, the lab is the bathroom, not the head, which we say in different branches. So let me translate for some people who like to rat out people that were in the Air Force. So, because, the Air Force gets a little butthurt. But think about it. They have a large budget and what? They get all the cool toys and everything. So just like a nerd, when they get upset, they just punch the keys harder, right? It's like when you were in school and they took away the calculator. Now you have to do math by hand with a pencil and paper, right? So where is all this wasted money going to? And is AI actually trying to help you? I remember I did some research, financial research on stock tips, right? And I went on Google's Gemini. Now, this was a while back, a couple months ago. And I said, Gemini, can you go ahead and reach into the public domain, meaning go onto the internet, right? And tell me which stocks in the last 3 to 5 years at a $20 price point that also have an option chain attached to it. If you know anything about options, you can make boatloads of cash there. That did over 200%, so on and so forth. And it gave me a beautiful chart and everything, and that lasted but so much. Here's the thing. I drove to a church and I mentioned this to somebody there, and guess what? Not only did it change a couple months later, Google literally says go speak to a financial advisor. When I asked Gemini why, it said because it's not a financial advisor and it's not allowed to give that type of information. Here's the thing, AI. It's in the public domain. All I was asking you to do is research like you do to employees, right? Go do this, program that, go develop this, go build that, right? That's what AI was supposed to do, or at least that's what it was intended to do, right? Or marketed as, right? Now think about it. People are being treated as cattle. Now, if you understand marketing, you know what branding is, because they do it to cattle. That's how they mark their territory, right? Why do you have an iPhone? Why do you have an Android? Why do you use a Mac instead of a PC? Why do you go ahead and use Chinese products? Or why do you outsource to China? Why? Because it's cheaper. The US currency weighs more in China, apparently, when you look at it on Forex or the stock exchange. For every $1 there, it's X amount of dollars over there. Same thing with Mexico and everything else. Now let's talk about Trump and his, choice of words when it comes to certain things, right? Because everything has a synonym, right? What's the difference between a gang, a mafia, a crew, or cartel? Nothing. They all do something that's, similar. Now, what's the difference between selling fentanyl on the street and pushing it in the hospital, right? One side pays taxes. Think about that. So if you pay taxes, you could get away with it. And if you're a cartel, just change your name. They did it to the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, think about it. You don't have to be known as a cartel anymore. You could be known as a gang, or you could be known as a crew, so on and so forth. Or you could be known as something else, right? And then if you change the name, they were taught to go after something else. It's called word disassociation. If I say something that you don't understand, I can get away with it, like inflation, which is another word for taxes. However, if we said that taxes were going to go up by 50-something%, adding inflation to the current tax rate, you would lose your mind and we would have another Boston Tea Party. The purpose of us coming here was to avoid and stop paying taxes. I mean, at least that's what the history books state, right? But then they started to creep in, so on and so forth. And people got greedy and more greedy and more greedy and more greedy. Then they figured out, how can we make more money, pay them the same amount, make them think that they're getting paid well, but still make more money? Let's call it inflation. Inflation affects everything, right? It increases the price of everything, so on and so forth, right? Taxes affect everything. It increases the price of everything. Yes or yes? So now I want you guys, if you get a chance to watch this, whether you're in the church, whether you're in the government, whether you're a civilian, whether you're in the military, so on and so forth, please, by all means, start asking proper questions. The more specific your questions, possibly the better the answer, unless people like to omit or plead the fifth, or as they say on the street, I got 5 on it. So this has been another episode of Finding Freedom, and by all means, if you haven't had the chance to check out Debunking Undercover Billionaire, where I utilize AI in order to pull myself out, right, of wherever I'm at, using a $50 Walmart phone that comes with Gemini pre-installed on it, right? Just to show you guys that it can be done, and almost anybody could do it if they ask the right questions specifically. Remember what Tony Robbins says, if you study Tony Robbins. When people say, I need money, okay, here's a quarter. Now that may be funny, but you were probably asking for more money. So you want to be specific with what you want, and maybe you'll get something else from AI, not just out of life. Because in the matrix that we live in, let's think about it. If they have all this technology and they were able to cure all this, right? What's the point in even creating population control? Oh, that's right. It's called population control for a reason, and they're profiteering off of it. And guess what? All of you that are on one side, whether it's left or right, how do you part a Red Sea? You make the other side blue and fight over it, right? And then whatever's left, that's yours to keep, because in sales, at least that's what they say, you keep what you kill in sales, right? However, marketing is what brings in the leads. I guess that's why it's called branding. Now they have an omni-channel presence, meaning they could reach you on your phone, on your television, on your computer, wherever you are, on whatever platform, in order to plant the seed, as they say, in order to sprout the idea, or to get you to think something or remain confident so you have a certain approach to certain things. Remember, when somebody tells you to look up, ask why. If they say, what's up? Say the sky. Now, what are you grateful for? And please do not lie. This has been another episode of Finding Freedom. I love you guys. I hope to see you again in the next episode. Take care. Peace.